Now, there was a meeting just yesterday between the leaders of the Quad countries, the United States, Japan, India, Australia. We saw the optics on the outside. How do you see the Quad play itself out? Now that the concern the world has is, now that India and China have pulled back a little bit from the brink, will India be less interested in forging a stronger Quad than we were at the height of escalation? How was the meeting yesterday? What's your take on it? How do you see the Quad evolve from here?
Look, first the chemistry, I think the mood, whatever you asked me, inside was just as warm as it was outside. I mean, I was watching it from inside. Because the Prime Minister, knows President Biden from the time Biden was Vice President. He has a very good equation with Prime Minister Morrison. He had a phone call, just a very good phone call just before the summit with Prime Minister Suga. So there was already a high degree of comfort and familiarity. But your issue about the Quad and how does it relate to what happened between India and China, I want to make 2 points here. First of all, the Quad is for something, it is not against somebody. Okay? So what is it for? Today, there is a pandemic, okay? There is a global search for vaccines. Does it not make sense for those who want to come together to produce more vaccines and make it more available to do that? Climate change. Okay? If a whole set of countries feel, okay, let's try and work together. Maritime security, connectivity, I can give you a long list. So there are, technology, resilient supply chains. So there are a whole lot of issues on which countries today want to come to work and work together. If these countries happen to be democratic countries, market economies, pluralistic societies, it makes it easier. So, you would also, if you wanted to sit and work with somebody, what would all of you do? All of you would find people with whom you're comfortable and work together. So, first of all, let's be clear, the Quad has a purpose of its own, it has a logic of its own, it has a driver of its own, it has a positive agenda, and you saw that agenda laid out yesterday. Okay? The second issue, look, we discovered this not in 2020 when we had problems with China, there was a Quad meeting in 2017 at a foreign secretary level. I went there when I was foreign secretary. We had a Quad meeting in 2019 as foreign ministers. I went there as foreign minister. So at that time we didn't have a situation in Ladakh. So I think this idea that something is happening in Ladakh, so Quad will go up and down, and India's mindset is so tactical. Look, this is a very strategic government. It's a very strategic Prime Minister. You don't kind of put your hand up and say, okay, which way is the wind blowing and that's the way I'm going. I think we have a very clear sense what are our interests, what is our strategy, what are our long-term prospects, and Quad is part of that.
One of your challenges, Dr. Jaishankar, is to manage India's image internationally. And over the past few days, we've seen multiple international reports which seem to suggest that India's standing is now, being clouded. For example, Freedom House put out a report which demoted India's freedom score from free to partly free, saying rights and civil liberties have been eroding since Prime Minister Modi came to power. The 5th annual democracy report by Sweden's VDEM Institute downgraded India from India's largest democracy to being an electoral autocracy. How do you see this play itself out in the context of how India is being perceived by the world, and these new reports which seem to say that at least these institutions are now taking a negative view of what's happening in our country?
You use the dichotomy of democracy and autocracy. You want the truthful answer, it's hypocrisy. Okay? It's hypocrisy because you have a set of self-appointed custodians of the world who find it very difficult to stomach that somebody in India is not looking for their approval, is not willing to play the game they want it to be played. So, they invent their rules, their parameters, pass their judgments, and then make out as though this is some kind of global exercise. So, I ask you, I mean you are talking of a report from Sweden, a report from the United States. Okay? We are supposed to be the nationalist, what do you always see? BJP, Hindu nationalist government, okay? Hindu nationalist party. So, let us talk nationalism. Okay? We are the nationalist guys. We have given vaccines to 70 countries in the world. So, tell me, the internationalist countries, how many vaccines have they given? I mean, which one of these countries has said, while I am doing my people, I will also do people outside who need it as much as my people do? So, suddenly where are these people when it comes to that? We are supposed to be shrinking civil rights because of apparently our mindset. Now, again, look at the politics of these places. I mean, whatever you might say, I mean, in this country nobody questions an election. Can you say that in those countries? So, and look at beliefs. I mean, yes, I mean all of us are entitled to our beliefs, our faiths, our values, etc. But I don't put my hand on a religious book when I take my oath of office. Guess which country does? So I think we need to, enough of those homilies. I am quite self-assured. I don't need certification from outside, certainly not from people who clearly have an agenda to drive. So, I would say thanks a lot.